Next we have Professor Gina Amantagelo in the Department of Public Administration to talk a little bit about using OER in a public administration course, the Intro to Public Administration course. I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, and I'll try and go quickly so we can have some time for questions. Okay, so I was always sensitive to the cost of textbooks when I was choosing textbooks, and so when Carolyn Ellis from the library approached me a few years ago about considering open source materials, I was really open to it. I really wanted things to be affordable and accessible to students, and I also wasn't crazy about the textbook that I was using in our Introduction to Public Administration course. And when I talked to my colleague who also teaches the course, she felt that a lot of the textbooks were designed for graduate students. So we were both open to experimenting. And so I developed a reading list for Public Administration and American Society, and then we received the grant as a department in 2017 to further refine that list and to adopt it for all sections of the course. And I teach 3 courses a semester, and students are not required to buy textbooks in any of those 3 courses. So if we're here today to preach the good word of open educational resources, I am officially a convert. I really like it, and I think it's. I'll show you some ways that I've approached it. So everybody's talks about the cost savings, so I think that's really evident. The thing that I like about it is your ability to customize your course. So I'm no longer bound by the topics that are covered in the textbook. I can really design the course exactly as I want to teach it. The fit is right because I'm picking readings that are tailored to an undergraduate audience. And it allows me some flexibility. So for example, in the senior seminar that I teach, it's a contemporary issues class where we focus on building students' research and writing skills, but it's also the capstone course for our degree program. And I feel really strongly that students in that course, I don't want them to go out into the world until they've really refined their career goals and prepared for their job search process. So I spend a few weeks at the beginning of the semester working with career services to get them ready for the job search. And I have one textbook that I use just for that, that's available online through the library. And then I use completely different course materials for the rest of the course. And it allows me that flexibility to make that shift in the units of the course. I think that it buys a lot of goodwill with your students. So sometimes students come into this classroom and we have to overcome this perception that we're out to get them. And when you tell them on day one that they don't have to spend any money on the materials in your course, they start to think that maybe, just maybe, you're on their side and that you want them to succeed. So it sends that message. As Christina said, sometimes at the beginning of the semester we have this challenge of students not having their financial aid money, or maybe the bookstore only bought 3 copies of your textbook. So you find that I think students, if they're going to read at all, they're most likely to read at the beginning of the semester, and yet we have those weeks at the beginning when they don't have it. So when you move to open source materials or free materials, then you have a smooth start to the semester. Everybody has the materials from day one. It's convenient for me. I teach on both campuses. Sometimes the night before an 8 a.m. class, I realize it's been a really long time since I looked at the course materials, and I have access to all of my course materials online, either through the UTSA library or through Blackboard, and I can access it anywhere. There's no more carrying around, those big heavy textbooks. And it's also encouraged me to think differently about how they're going to get the information. So most of the material that I put in front of them are readings, but sometimes it's a podcast or a radio show or a video, just to mix it up a little bit. Okay, so these are the approaches that I've taken. The other presenters today were here to show you the innovative ways to offer free and reduced cost materials. I'm here to show you the easy ways. So in one of my courses, I just have asked that the textbook, that the library purchase my textbook as an ebook. And that's really simple. You just email Deanne, and she can tell you how long it will take to get it. But that's been really wonderful because the students can either download the chapters or they can access them online at the library. And then they always have the option to purchase a hard copy textbook if they like, but everybody has access to the course materials. For our 11-13 class, we've developed a course reading list across the department, and we use a range of things. So some of them are open source materials that are available online. Some of them are textbook chapters. We've chosen our favorite chapters from different textbooks, and we've worked with Deanne to make sure we're following fair use guidelines. We use journal articles, contemporary articles, and case studies. So it's a mix of things, and then everything is either available on the syllabus that students can click through a link, or it's available in a folder on Blackboard. And Patricia has done a really good job on this in posting the readings with discussion questions. So we're really guiding students to what we want them to know and what we want them to get out of the reading. So these are a few resources. Deanne and others suggested these first two websites. So these are open courses. And if you want to take a look at these, you might find things in your discipline area that are that would be of interest or of use to you. When I explored, I didn't find a course that fit off the shelf that I could just grab and use, and so that's why we developed our own reading list. I did think it was interesting to look at how others organize their courses, and more so than just seeing someone's syllabus online, you can actually see the homework assignments that they're giving. You have access to a lot of course materials here that even if you don't use them off the shelf for your class, you can learn a lot, I think, from colleagues by looking at these. Lumen Learning is a site where you can pay for access to course materials, but they do have some things available online, so I've used some articles and videos from there. I would say the best resources, though, are the UTSA librarians and your own bookshelf of, sort of what are the things over time that you really look to as key materials in your discipline. The things that I would suggest for anyone who's considering this, just start a little early. If you're asking the library to order the ebook, you want to make sure that you give them time to do that before the start of the semester. If you're organizing your materials on Blackboard, it does take a little bit more time the first semester than it would setting up your course otherwise. But really, once we invested the time in getting the course reading list and getting Blackboard set up, after that, in future semesters, we can really just update things to make sure that we have timely articles in there. But it doesn't take a lot of work over time. So I'd say just start a little early. I'd recommend thinking about how you organize the materials so that students can find them. I tend to go in and put the readings, mark them by date, in addition to having them on the syllabus. I found that when I had everything organized at the beginning of the semester and I really oriented students on how to find the materials, even just I don't assume that they know how to find an ebook on the UTSA library website, so I go over that in class. So I found that when everything is organized from the beginning of the semester and you guide students on where to find things, they are more likely to read. And I tend to move the current readings up to the top of Blackboard. When I tried one semester kind of releasing the readings by unit, and I found that students were a little unclear on what they were supposed to be reading when. So having it really clearly articulated in the syllabus from the beginning and having it organized from the beginning of the semester seems to help. And then finally, choosing content that is accessible to the students. While there's a wealth of journal articles out there, they don't always do as good of a job summarizing the key elements of a subject that a textbook would do. And so, and students will sometimes say that they really appreciate that there's no textbook to purchase, but the readings might be dry. So trying to find content that's still accessible to our students and that really covers the material that we want to cover in the course. So when I think about challenges to this approach, I think the only thing that I really come back to is that I really hoped that by reducing the barrier of cost for students, that everyone would suddenly start reading in the course. And so you can guess what happened, right? So it maybe reduces barriers for some students, and it has lots of benefits, but it's not a silver bullet. Students still don't read course materials unless we use other strategies. And so I think that's one of the things I really would encourage folks who haven't taken this approach to consider doing it, but know that it's that we need to do other things in order to get students to read. So what do you think, other than cost, are the reasons that students don't read in your class?
They don't need to. Yeah.
Okay, they perceive that they don't need to. Any others?
Lack of interest.
They're not interested? Yes?
Some of my students have disabilities that they're not necessarily getting services for.
Okay.
So I don't find out until we actually have to write that they may have these disabilities.
Okay, so some students have disabilities that make reading difficult for them and they're not getting the assistance that they need. Any others?
Fear.
Okay.
Fear
Fear.
they're not going to understand it.
Yeah, fear that they might not understand. Right. So there, we could go on, and I think this is a topic Mary has done a whole workshop on designing your classes so that students will read, and I'd encourage you to look at her presentation on that. So in addition to having free and reduced textbooks, cost textbooks, there are other strategies we need to employ, and so I try and remember to tell the students what the reading is for the next class, and also give them some teaser questions to try and interest them in the reading. Giving them guidance on how to read the material. As I said, we post the readings on Blackboard with discussion questions so they know what to look for, particularly if they're just going to skim. Sometimes I require a reading response in class or on Blackboard, and at times I'll allow students to use notes from their readings on quizzes or tests, so that really motivates them to read the material and take notes. And I'm sure you have other strategies that you employ to get students to read the material, but I think it's just important to keep in mind that we need to think holistically about what we've got to do to get students to read the material, not just reducing the barrier of the cost. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay.